Do you like to be creative or use your imagination? I know a really fun way we can do that in your own backyard or at a park. We're going to do that by creating a small world. A small world can be any place, space, scene where someone or something could live. Maybe you or a friend has a play set with a barn and some farm animals. That's one example of a small world. That world is a farm, and the animals that live there have everything they need. For my grown-ups who are watching with their kiddos, keep an eye out for some text I'm going to add as we go along. I'll pop up little boxes that tell you a little more about why you would want to make small worlds with your children and what the benefits are of this type of creative pretend play. We can create a small world for anyone or anything if we use our imaginations. In your small world, you make the rules. So you might want to think about things that an animal would need. Like if I wanted to build a small world for a fish, do you think I'd put a lot of grass in their home or a lot of water? A fish would want to have a lot of water probably, unless I was feeling really silly and making a home for a fish who lives in the grass. It's your world, so you can be as silly or as real as you want. A couple of my friends made a small world for some pretend frogs. What are some things you think we might see in a home for frogs? I expect to see some water, maybe some lily pads or some mud. Let's take a look and see what they decided to put in their small world for frogs. So they decided to make theirs inside a tub. You could do it that way, or just build right on the ground. Let's take a closer look at their home. It looks like they have rocks and they have sticks and logs. They have plenty of pretend frogs and some leaves that float like lily pads. I even see another animal in there, a little turtle. That was really neat. They also made a small world for a snail that they found. Let's take a look at how they decided what things they wanted to put in the small world for their snail.
What do you think we need for his home?
Some dirt and some leaves and maybe some food.
Oh, is that where you found him, in the dirt?
Yes.
Oh, cool. All right, let's dig up some dirt from the garden. Okay. So we've got this dish here. It's just an old takeout container, but any kind of plastic container or Tupperware would work great. And let's go find a shovel and dig up some dirt to fill it. What are you doing right now?
Making it soft and crumbly.
Nice.
So the snail can slide around.
Oh, cool. That'll make a nice place for him to slide around and to live. I see you're putting a lid on the container. What's that for?
That's to make sure he doesn't come out, and it has these little holes on it so he can breathe.
Oh, good idea. What do you see?
He's big.
He's big. What's making him so big?
From everything.
Oh, are you using your magnifying glass to get a closer look? How does his shell feel?
Hi.
Hold him on a nice flat hand. Oh, he went back in. Do you think maybe he got a little nervous being picked up?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's put him on his leaf so he can come out and slither around. There's our snail in his new temporary habitat. So we can bring him inside and observe him for a few days, and then we'll put him back in the garden where we found him.
Come take a trip with me to my backyard, and there we're going to create two small worlds. One for a real bug that we find, and one for a pretend bug or a fairy house, whatever we want it to be. For this first one, I actually found a couple of little slugs. You'll see one here on this piece of wood, and there was one over on the other side. Let's build a home for them. In our yard, I found some long seed pods from our catalpa tree that were perfect to build with. I also brought some rocks with me. I actually brought those from inside. I also picked up some dried leaves and some sticks. You'll notice that all the things I have, I chose because they were things I found. I didn't pick anything that was still growing. If it was growing, I let it grow. The first thing I did was lay down some of my rocks. I know that I've seen slugs hiding under and around rocks, so I thought they might like some in their home. But again, I see them hiding, so I thought that having a nice piece of wood to hide underneath would make them very happy. Next, I decided to add some leaves, kind of as a shelter or a way to help them hide. I laid the leaves around on top of the part that I had already built. One thing I know about slugs is that they're really good at climbing because they're so slimy. So I thought they might like some sticks to climb on. The ground was pretty wet because it had been raining before, so it was easy for me to push some sticks down into the ground for them to climb on. Next, I took some of those catalpa seed pods and made some other branches off of the sticks that I had put in the ground for them. That way they have different choices about where they can climb. I also found this piece of bark that I thought was kind of a fun addition. I noticed that this stick I had found was a little hollow on this end. It had kind of a hole, and I know that slugs love to hide, so I thought that they might enjoy having a stick with a nice hole in the middle to hide in. Now, I've seen slugs hiding in places other than just leaves and sticks. I know that sometimes they like to hide in and under rocks too. So I stacked up some rocks so they could use them for climbing or for hiding underneath too. Now, if you're not too into slugs, that's okay. I found a spot over by this tree. I liked the little stump here, and I thought it might make a fun home for an imaginary creature, like a fairy. Or it could be a home for the bugs that live in your backyard that choose to use it. I used a rock to be the bed, and I added a little leaf as a blanket or a cover. Then I found something nice and soft that I could squish up to make a pillow for the bed. I decided to use some of my rocks to make a walkway that leads up to my fairy home. While I was building, I found this rock that was flat on one side that I thought might make an interesting door. I split up those catalpa seed pods that I had used earlier into smaller pieces, and then I folded them in half. Once they were folded up, it was easy to stick them down into the ground. Then I could use them as part of the walls to my fairy house. Once I had some good structure built up, I started adding some of the leaves that I found to be the walls and the shelter for my fairy home. I added in some different leaves of different sizes in different places so that they would overlap and create one strong shelter wall. I decided to add some sticks in the back so that I could add some more catalpa seed pods to create a strong, sturdy shelter. Next, I used some pieces of bark that I found to make some furniture to go inside of my small world. That one I thought maybe made a nice table, and I found another one that might make a fun chair. So I put them both in. The last thing I decided to do for this small world was create a little playground for whoever would like to use this house. So I added a stick to these rocks to make a little seesaw or teeter-totter that could move back and forth. Then I used a couple of sticks and some vine that I found to make a little swing for it too.
Now that you have some ideas of how to make small worlds, I would love to see some of the things you come up with. What kinds of things would you find in your backyard or at your park that you could use to build small worlds? How would you play with them? For grown-ups with really small children, infants and toddlers,
We can make small worlds for them. It's more of a sensory experience. So I might have a tub with sand and pretend there's snakes, or put play snakes in, or have a tub with water and moving fish inside. For us older kiddos, we can make decisions. We can decide what the animals in our homes and our small worlds need. When you create, you can use anything you have. If your backyard has sticks or twigs or rocks, use those. If you don't, you can use something else. If you have pretend animals that you want to use to create a home, you could do that. For example, I have a pretend hippo here. I could make a hippo home and give it some water and some mud, and I think it would like to have some little fishes, just like our hippos have at the St. Louis Zoo. But if you don't have a hippo, or other animals, you can pretend too. You can always use rocks and leaves and sticks and other things, or you can create homes for bugs or fairies or whoever you think might be in your backyard. Thanks so much for creating and imagining with me. I would love to know what kinds of things you guys come up with. See you next time.